Good evening, Professor. This is the week 4 assignment on the persuasive presentation outline. The title is New Policy Change in Attendance and Productivity. Before I begin with any of the other details, this is all fictional from various company standpoint and business standpoint. I got all the experiences as well as the evidence from my sources underlined in my references page, and most of it just coming from my own personal and academic experience while working this. The specific purpose is to persuade current company policy and attendance, why the policy should be implemented, and how productivity affects the attendance. So basically how the attendance and productivity, how they both matter, with one being affected by the other or vice versa. The audience is the coworkers and senior leadership in the company. The organizational pattern is problem and solution. To start off with my introduction, in the fictional company, there have been incidents of attendance and productivity where both have had various implications for each other. Where when one happens too much, the other one falters down. So a lot of the reasons that somebody would call off at work, not show up, or have any other reason, it shows that this effect with just a little, with the reasons that are shown with just attendance, it affects productivity. And when that occurs, the rest of the workplace and the various employees that are currently working while that other person has to take the time off for whatever the reason may be, it has a lot to do with some of the morality of how the employees work. Most of the time, the people that do use the attendance policies to call off in the event of emergencies or the event of various specific situations are in the right. However, there are some that would normally use the attendance policy just to call off work, just to not show up, or in this case, not pulling their own weight while doing it. In terms of like the human resource manager kind of point of view, you have to deal with the attendance and payroll of the employees, where the trends of specific people and the assertion of the attendance plays along with the productivity of the community. So if somebody is not showing up to work, it affects everyone else as a whole, depending on like if their work is separated into different groups or if they're separated by different people. So most of the current attendance policy is created in order to help support people that need time off, or in the events of special situations. Calling off and using your vacation days are a benefit that is guarded and should be used. That's not something that's going to be changed within anything, but everyone does have the obligation to privacy, and if needed to call off, you should follow the company policies on how that specifically should be mandated. Most of the time, a lot of the new hires and a lot of the older people, they don't, since company policy changes over the course of years or it changes over the course of various notions, a lot of things change and people are not in terms with the new set modern standard of the policy. As mentioned before, I do annotate that some people do use the attendance policy for those specific situations. Like, for example, if a family member were to die and you have to call off because you have to take a funeral, or you got into a car accident, or you have any other specific situation. Most of the time, as long as you let somebody know within your management on whether or not you could use the attendance, or just to let them know in the event of an emergency, that's how it should be done. That's how the benefit of using your attendance should be used, because in the eventual end goal, the overusage of the attendance policy can lead to somebody being considered truant in the workplace, or it can be considered to having a trend of where they are not creating a specific outcome of work that needs to be satiated. Most of the information that I get comes from Gallup Inc., which was made. They published their information on July 7th, 2014, basically on their workplace wellness programs and what they're missing, and the morale and how the productivity and the attendance of certain employees and workers deal hand in hand with. And they noticed that in some of those emergencies, you have to make sure to submit the days in prior. For example, if you're trying to just use the attendance in order to take time off, you should follow the normal policy, which is to submit with a couple of weeks to a month in advance or two in advance in order for people to move your work to another area or to have somebody else cover down for you while you get your work done. And it is shown that productivity and the amount of time that someone is not at work has a direct correlation to each other with the overall morale of the workplace and the overall completion of the work. For example, if somebody's been given a task to do on Monday and they call off on Tuesday, then that task hasn't been done for Monday and Tuesday, those 2 days. And then when they come to work to Wednesday, you're going to have to try to figure it out how to get that done, since it's already about 2 to 3 days overdue if you include Wednesday. And when somebody does miss out of that work, that portion, even if it's been posted to somebody else, it should have been handled in the back end if they hadn't done it. There have been cases where people would just be truant and not call off, or in the event of, a specific situation like a car accident or something where they couldn't reach any sort of communication. However, that shouldn't be a deterrent of, if you're able to call off or you're able to use the attendance policy to that specific nature, you should be able to give the appropriate amount of time for management to get your work done in time regardless. So in ending, with the productivity as well as with the attendance policy, both do play hand in hand and they have direct correlation. And thus, with the new change in the public policy, whether just to making sure that somebody knows that you're actually using those days off, or you call off and your work gets shifted to somebody else, or you get on the back burner in order to get your work done, it is something that you should be using highly in terms of work experience, as well as not being considered truant in the workplace.